Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel, U.S. Immigration News. We hope you're doing great. In this video, we're going to talk about President Trump's 2025 immigration policies for undocumented immigrants, and Trump's immigration orders are a blueprint for sweeping policy changes. As the U.S. approaches 2025, President Trump's immigration policies continue to focus on securing the border and limiting undocumented immigration. His tough stance, which has defined much of his political career, promises to intensify enforcement measures and address what he sees as a national security threat posed by illegal immigration. President Donald Trump's approach to immigration has been a defining feature of his political career, and as we look toward his proposed policies for 2025, the focus remains on securing the U.S. border and curbing what he perceives as a threat posed by undocumented immigrants. Since his campaign in 2015, Trump has repeatedly made the case that illegal immigration, particularly through the southern border, is a major national security risk. He has often equated undocumented immigrants with criminality, a stance that has not only shaped public discourse but also influenced his policy platform. His 2025 immigration policies promise a tough stance aimed at cracking down on undocumented individuals, with significant implications for both the U.S. and immigrant populations. Key aspects of Trump's 2025 immigration plan. Central to Trump's 2025 immigration policies is the assertion that the Biden administration's approach to immigration, particularly the catch and release policy, has been ineffective. Trump has vowed to eliminate this policy and reinstate the controversial Remain in Mexico protocol, which requires asylum seekers to wait in Mexico until their cases are processed. Additionally, Trump plans to continue building his signature border wall, a project that has faced significant opposition but remains a cornerstone of his hardline immigration stance. Critics argue that the wall is not only ineffective but also a symbol of division. In addition to reinforcing physical barriers, Trump aims to eliminate asylum for individuals who cross the border legally, arguing that the system is being abused. Another component of Trump's plan involves a crackdown on sanctuary cities, which are jurisdictions that limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. Trump's administration has often painted these cities as complicit in harboring criminals and undermining national security. He has promised to cut federal funding to sanctuary cities that refuse to cooperate with federal immigration authorities, arguing that these areas are protecting individuals who pose a danger to the safety and security of U.S. citizens. Suspending refugee resettlement and public opinion. Trump's policies also call for the suspension of refugee resettlement programs. He argues that the U.S. is already overwhelmed by migrants, particularly in cities like New York, and that resources should be directed toward U.S. citizens first. This stance, however, has deepened the divide in public opinion. Many Americans, especially those in economically struggling areas, see the surge in immigration as a drain on local resources. They voice frustration over welfare programs that they believe prioritize migrants over citizens in need. However, such a hardline approach fails to acknowledge the broader humanitarian crisis driving migration, including violence, poverty, and instability in many migrants' home countries. As Trump's 2025 immigration policies unfold, they are likely to exacerbate tensions over immigration and strain relationships within American communities. Impact on undocumented immigrants and their families. For undocumented individuals, Trump's policies could lead to increased enforcement measures, stricter penalties, and a heightened risk of deportation. With stronger border controls, the fear of being detained or deported could overshadow the lives of millions already living in the U.S. without legal status. This creates an environment of anxiety and uncertainty for families that may be torn apart by immigration enforcement. While Trump supporters argue that these measures are necessary to protect American citizens, his policies will inevitably have far-reaching consequences for the undocumented population, amplifying their vulnerability. Trump's immigration orders are a blueprint for sweeping policy changes. From his first moments back in office, President Trump framed the problem of illegal immigration in terms of national security. "We will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country," Trump said in his inaugural address. That word invasion has become mainstream on the right when talking about immigration, in spite of objections from immigrant advocates and some Democrats. They argue the term is dehumanizing and also deeply misleading, since border crossings have fallen sharply from their record highs during the Biden administration. But the Trump administration is leaning into it. The word invasion appears frequently in the executive actions the president signed last week. It's even in the title of 2 of them. There may be a very specific legal reason for that. "It's the key for everything they're trying to do," said John Sandweg, former acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement under President Obama, who now heads the cross-border risk team at the law firm Nixon Peabody. In its first week, the Trump White House launched a broad crackdown on immigration, one of Trump's signature campaign promises. His administration quickly closed off access to the CBP One app and asylum protections at the U.S. border, sent more active duty troops to help with border barriers and removal flights, opened the door for immigration authorities to arrest immigrants in schools, churches, and hospitals, and cleared the way for authorities to begin removing more than 1 million migrants who were legally admitted to the U.S. under the Biden administration. Not all of Trump's executive actions will have immediate effects, but taken together, immigration experts say they lay out a blueprint for how his administration aims to dramatically transform enforcement at the border and beyond. "This is a significant dialing up," said Doris Meissner, a senior fellow at the Nonpartisan Migration Policy Institute in Washington, D.C., and a former top immigration official during the Clinton administration. "It really renames and recategorizes immigration as a national security threat," Meissner said during a recent call with reporters. Legal experts say framing unlawful migration at the southern border as an invasion may be crucial to the Trump administration's plans. "We are not surprised to hear it at all. I think that was intended to tee up some of the actions he's contemplating now," said Elizabeth Goidian, the senior director of the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice, a left-leaning nonprofit. "It's been widely understood that the president has inherent constitutional authority to repel sudden attacks or invasions. So these are terms that summon, essentially, war powers," Goidian said. The Trump administration is already using this justification to effectively cut off access to asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border. There's another option that the president has talked about using to go after drug cartels: the Alien Enemies Act, which would give him emergency authority to bypass normal immigration law to quickly detain and deport non-citizens. That authority has been used only a few times, most recently during World War II. "It's quite clear that the framers understood the term to deal with armed attacks by foreign powers," Goidian said. "We're talking about acts of war. We are not talking about unlawful immigration. It's not clear if the Trump administration's invasion framing will work in the courts." A federal judge in Texas has already ruled against that state's leaders when they tried to make a similar case. But if Trump's executive orders do hold up, they could help his administration reshape the immigration system, and not just at the border. "If you look at these executive orders, it really is all spelled out there," said Sandweg, the former acting head of ICE. Like other former immigration officials, Sandweg was skeptical that Trump could deliver on his campaign promise to build the largest mass deportation operation in U.S. history. That's mainly because of legal and logistical hurdles, including a shortage of detention beds and long backlogs in immigration court. But after looking at Trump's first round of executive orders and actions, Sandweg's thinking has changed. The White House could tap military resources and the Alien Enemies Act to speed the deportation process. If he's able to bypass those courts entirely and then tap into Department of Defense resources to build detention camps and military bases, mass deportation becomes a much more realistic possibility, Sandweg said in an interview. Another executive order Trump signed last week directs the Defense Department to draw up a plan to seal the borders of the U.S. by repelling forms of invasion, including unlawful mass migration, narcotics trafficking, human smuggling, and trafficking. that could potentially go far beyond how any recent administration has used the U.S. military. For now, Trump has only moved an additional 1,500 active duty troops to the border. Their role is limited to building border barriers and operating flights to send 5,000 migrants per month back to their home countries. This is all perfectly legal, said Mark Krikorian, executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies, a think tank that favors lower levels of immigration. Krikorian says Trump might try to test the limits by using active duty troops to assist directly in immigration enforcement. The troops will be a kind of force multiplier for the Border Patrol. That hasn't happened yet, and we'll see how that works, he said. Will soldiers be arresting illegal aliens? That'll be an interesting question. That's one of many legal questions that might come up as Trump follows through on the blueprint he laid out in his first week. Trump's 2025 immigration plan reinforces his commitment to border security, with significant implications for both U.S. citizens and undocumented immigrants. While his policies appeal to those prioritizing national security, they also highlight the growing divide over how to balance security with humanitarian concerns. That is all for today in this video. What are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the entire video. Hopefully, the information is useful to you. See you later in the next video. Till then, take care.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel US Immigration News. We hope you are doing great. In this video, we are going to talk about President Trump 2025 immigration policies for undocumented immigrants, and Trump immigration orders are a blueprint for a sweeping policy changes. President Donald Trump immigration policies have a long emphasized border security and addressing what he views as the national security risk posed by undocumented immigrants, especially those entering through the southern border. As he looks towards 2025, his immigration approach remains centered on curbing illegal immigration, reinforcing the U.S. border, and limiting what he perceives as the threat associated with the undocumented individuals. Trump's 2025 immigration plan builds on his criticism of the Biden administration policies, particularly the catch and release approach. He has worked to reinstate the controversial Remain in Mexico protocol, which forces asylum seekers to wait in Mexico until their cases are processed. In addition, Trump is committed to continuing the construction of his signature border wall despite significant opposition. His policies also include eliminating asylum for individuals who cross the border illegally, citing abuse of the system, and intensifying efforts against sanctuary cities, which limit cooperation with the federal immigration authorities. Trump has promised to cut federal funding to these cities, claiming they protect criminals and undermine the U.S. safety. Trump's stance extends to refugee resettlement, with a proposal to suspend these programs, arguing that the U.S. is overwhelmed by migrants and that resources should be prioritized for U.S. citizens, particularly in economically challenged areas. While his supporters argue that these policies protect American interests, they have a deep dimension in public opinion, particularly among communities concerned about the financial strength of immigration. The most significant impact of Trump's policies is likely to be on undocumented immigrants who face increased enforcement, harsher penalties, and heightened risk of deportation. With stricter border control, the fear of detention and deportation looms large over the undocumented population, leading to anxiety and uncertainty, particularly for families living in the U.S. without legal status. In the first week of his new term, Trump signed executive orders framing illegal immigration as an invention and justifying a stronger military presence at the border, including troops to assist in building barriers and removing migrants. He has also pushed for expedited deportation using military resources and the Allied Enemies Act to bypass immigration courts. These actions represent a significant shift in enforcement, raising legal questions and further polarizing the debate over immigration policy. Overall, Trump's 2025 immigration policies are set to continue as a hardline stance, intensifying the debate over the balance between national security and the rights of migrants, while likely exacerbating dimension within American society.